Hello, AP Chemistry students, and welcome to your final lesson for your Unit 2 of your summer homework, which is all about naming compounds. So let's talk about an element. An element, remember, cannot be broken down by physical or chemical changes, and it's found on the periodic table. It can either be a monatomic, which is one atom, or a diatomic, which is two atoms. The diatomic elements that are on the periodic table, remember Dr. Brinkelhoff. So bromine, iodine, nitrogen, chlorine, hydrogen, oxygen, and fluorine. And I have a image of all of them on the bottom of the slide for you to remember as well. Compounds are composed of two or more elements that can be broken down by a chemical change. So nitrogen oxide, water, nitrogen dioxide, carbon dioxide, those are all common compounds that you should be aware of. And they are not found on the periodic table. You can search for them all you want, but I promise you they are not there. So what about ions? Ions are elements that have a charge. They can be found by looking at the periodic table based on the group that is in to figure out what the charge of that element is, or that ion is. So if it's in group 1, it's +1. If it's group 2, it's +2. Group 13 is +3. Group 14 can either be a +4 or a -4, depending on whether or not that element is a metal or a nonmetal. Group 15 is -3. Group 16 is -2. Group 17 is -1. And group 18 has no charge. Remember, group 18 are your noble gases, and they have no charge. So, cations are going to be your ones that are positively charged. When you name them, you're going to be naming them the same as the element is. So if it's a calcium atom, it'll be named calcium atom. And if it's the calcium +2 ion, it'll still be the calcium ion. Anions, on the other hand, are negatively charged, and they are named ending with IDE. So if you're talking about N, that would be your nitrogen atom. Or if you're talking about N-3, that's the nitride, ends in IDE, ion. So here is a periodic table that has the most common charges up at the top for you. So, and also an explanation as to why those charges are the way they are as you go from left to right across a period or down a group. Now, ionic compounds and covalent compounds are named differently. So ionic compounds, remember, consists of two elements. One has to be a metal and one has to be a nonmetal. So to name those, you're going to write the complete name of the first element first, and then you're going to write the second element, and the ending should be in IDE. Now, what about when you're writing ionic compounds and you want to write their formulas? So to write a formula, the first thing you're going to do is to write the two ions separately, showing what their charges are. Then you're going to swap the two numbers and drop the signs. And we call this the crisscross rule. So if we were going to write the formula for aluminum oxide, aluminum is +3, oxide is -2. We are going to drop the signs and crisscross them. So that means that it will be Al2O3. And if it can be reduced, you're going to reduce it. In this case, it can't be. So your formula for aluminum oxide is Al2O3. Now, what about transition metals and nonmetals? Transition metals, remember, are in the middle section of the periodic table, so groups 3 through 12. And nonmetals are on the right side of the staircase where your metalloids are found. They're to the right of that. They have multiple charges or oxidation numbers. So you must show which charge you are using with Roman numerals. So here are your Roman numerals. You need to memorize what they are, because if you're ever given a formula, you need to know what that Roman numeral charge stands for. Be careful though, because this rule does not always work for the cations. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find the anion's charge and equalize that with the cation's charge as a check. Remember, ionic compounds, the overall charge of the compound is going to be neutral. So your cation charge and your anion charges are going to have to cancel. Now what about covalent compounds? Covalent compounds, remember, consist of two elements and they're both nonmetals. So to name those, you're going to write the complete name of the first element first. Then the second element is going to end with that IDE. However, for covalent compounds, you need to use prefixes to tell how many of each element there are in that compound. So mono is 1, di is 2, tri is 3, tetra is 4, penta is 5, hexa is 6, hepta is 7, octa is 8, nona is 9, and deca is 10. Now remember, when there's one element and it's the first element in that compound, you do not use mono.